The first thing I noticed was the knocking. Not the sound itself, gentle, hesitant, almost polite, but the time of it. On Outpost K, 317, nothing knocked on doors at 3 in the morning. Cargo drones announced themselves. Security patrols used to override codes. And anyone desperate enough to knock usually didn't live long enough to try. I rolled out of my bunk, joints protesting, and glanced at the cracked chrono on my wall. 3:12 station time. Yell. I muttered, already reaching for the plasma cutter I kept under my pillow. Old habit. Old scars. The knock came again. Softer this time. I frowned. Against my better judgment, I cracked the door open. Standing in the dim corridor was a child. Not human. She barely came up to my chest, wrapped in a dark ceremonial cloak far too ornate for this rusted excuse of a station. Her skin shimmered with a faint pearlescent hue, shifting colors like oil on water, clearly royal Talaran lineage. Her eyes, enormous and luminescent silver, looked up at me with a mixture of fear and stubborn resolve. Behind her, the corridor lights flickered. Somewhere far away, alarms didn't sound, which told me something far worse was happening quietly. "I'm sorry," she said, voice trembling but controlled. "Are you the human?" I stared at her for a long second. "Yeah," I said carefully. "Kid, you're at the wrong door." Her shoulders sagged with visible relief. Then I chose correctly. That was my first mistake, thinking this night would end quietly. I pulled her inside before anyone could see. The door sealed with a hydraulic hiss, and my quarters felt suddenly much smaller. "Sit," I said, pointing to the battered chair by the table. "Start talking." Slowly. She obeyed, folding herself with practiced grace. Definitely noble-trained. "My name is AndIWasThere," she said. "Heir second to the throne of the Concordant Reach." I swore under my breath. Royal. Not just royal, imperial. "You know," I said, rubbing my face, "there are approximately 4,000 better doors you could have knocked on." "Yes," she replied quietly. "They were all guarded by people trying to kill me." "Fair point." She explained in fragments at first. A coup within the Reach. High counselors conspiring with mercenary fleets. Her parents dead or missing. Loyalists hunted. Assassins sweeping the station in silence, avoiding alarms, eliminating targets one by one. "And you?" I asked. "Why me?" Her eyes met mine, unwavering despite the fear underneath. "Because humans do not bow," she said. "And you are alone." That should have scared me. Instead, something old and buried stirred in my chest. I used to be military. Human expeditionary forces. Border wars, peacekeeping, evacuations that turned into massacres. I got out after my unit was ordered to withdraw and leave civilians behind. I didn't leave with them. I survived. Barely. Now I fixed reactors for credits and drank too much synth whiskey. That was supposed to be the end of it. But fate, as usual, had other plans. I scanned my console, pulling station schematics and security feeds. Sure enough, ghost signatures moving between decks. Professionals. Quiet. "They'll sweep residential next," I said. "You can't stay." Alira nodded. "I know." I hesitated. Then I sighed. "Good news, kid. You knocked on the wrong door." Her face fell. "Bad news," I continued, grabbing my old field jacket from the wall, the faded HEF patch still stitched inside. "I'm coming with you." Her eyes widened. "You will risk your life for me?" I snorted. I was bored. That was a lie. But she smiled anyway. We moved through maintenance shafts first, tight spaces, rusted panels, forgotten routes only station techs and smugglers remembered. I disabled cameras, looped feeds, Jam trackers with an EMP puck I'd been saving for emergencies I hoped never came. They came. Twice. The first assassin never saw me. Human reflexes are faster than most species expect. The second got a shot off, clipped my shoulder, burning like hell, but Aelira screamed, and the lights around us exploded outward in a psychic shockwave. She stared at her hands afterward, horrified. I didn't mean to. It's fine, I said through clenched teeth. Next time, aim better. She blinked, then laughed. A sharp, surprised sound. We reached an abandoned docking bay just as the station finally erupted into chaos. Sirens. Gunfire. Explosions. Too late for subtlety. A loyalist cruiser decloaked outside the viewport. Beautiful, angular, unmistakably Talaran royal design. They came, she whispered. Of course they did, I said. Royal kids have terrible timing. The mercenaries came too. The bay turned into a war zone. I fought like I hadn't in years. Every movement muscle memory, every shot deliberate. Humans don't have natural armor or psychic gifts. What we have is stubbornness, adaptability, and a deep, deep refusal to quit. Aelira stood behind me, hands glowing, shielding us from fire. Why do you fight like this? She asked between blasts. Because, I grunted, someone's got to show the universe what humans do when they're pushed. We made it onto the cruiser with seconds to spare. As the docking clamps released, I collapsed against the wall, blood soaking my sleeve. Medics rushed me, shouting in Talaran and switching to trade common when they saw my face. Aelira stayed by my side the entire time. Later, much later, I woke in a clean bed with real gravity and real sunlight filtering through crystalline windows. She stood at the foot of the bed, no longer in a cloak but in royal regalia. Guards lined the walls. Advisors murmured. The child was gone. The queen-in-waiting remained. You should not be here, I said groggily. And yet, she replied, smiling softly, you are. She told me the coup failed. Loyalists rallied. Evidence broadcast across the reach. Counselors arrested. Fleets recalled. You saved more than me, she said. You saved the throne. I shook my head. I just opened a door. She stepped closer. In our culture, she said, one who shields the air with their life is bound as Kareth. I frowned. That sounds ceremonial. It is, she confirmed, and permanent. Oh. What does it mean? I asked. She met my eyes, silver gaze steady. It means, she said, you are family. Silence filled the chamber. Then she added gently, and I would like you to stay, as my protector, and my advisor. I laughed weakly. I'm a mechanic. You are human, she said. That is qualification enough. Years later, when historians would write about the human who stood between the crown and oblivion, they would focus on battles and treaties. They would not mention the knock on a forgotten door at 3 a.m. But I would remember, because sometimes HFY doesn't start with a fleet or a superweapon. Sometimes it starts with a tired human, a scared child, and the wrong door, opened at exactly the right moment. I stayed. Not because I was ordered to, not because I was paid. I stayed because the universe had a way of knocking exactly once, and I had already opened the door. Years passed. Aelira grew from a frightened child into a ruler the Concordant Reach had never known. Where previous monarchs spoke in ceremony and tradition, she spoke plainly. Where others hesitated, she acted. And every time someone asked why the Reach suddenly changed, why borders stabilized, why predatory empires backed off, why negotiations suddenly favored fairness, they'd glance at me, the human. I never sat on the throne, never wore a crown. I stood where humans always seem to stand best, half a step behind, watching everything. Assassination attempts came and went. None succeeded. The first time an envoy threatened war, I leaned forward and calmly explained how humans fought wars we didn't want. The room went very quiet after that. They learned. When Aelira was formally crowned, she didn't summon me forward. She turned to me instead. "This throne exists," she said to the entire Reach, "because a human opened his door when fear knocked." She placed her hand over her heart, our heart gesture now. "I declare humanity a bound ally of the Concordant Reach. Not vassals. Not subjects." Her silver eyes found mine. "Family." The chamber erupted. Later, when the palace finally fell silent, she stood beside me on the balcony, overlooking 1,000 stars. "You never asked to leave," she said. I shrugged. "You never asked me to." She smiled, the same one she'd worn that night in the corridor. "The wrong door," she murmured. "The right time," I corrected. Out there, beyond the Reach, the galaxy was still dangerous. Still cruel. Still very willing to underestimate humans. Let them. Because now they knew something else too. If you threaten the innocent, if you hunt a child, if you knock on the wrong door, a human might answer. And we don't close doors easily.